After he forgot all about me, he wants to be the baby's dad. After Grant Wilson lost his memory, he thought I was a scammer and handed me a black card, telling me to disappear quickly. Holding the card and looking at the pregnancy test that just showed 2 lines, I happily ran off, with money and a baby on the way, and no need to deal with that cold-faced man every day. Life couldn't be better. But before I could be happy for a few days, I ran into Grant Wilson during my prenatal checkup at the hospital. Once, twice, 3 times. The more we met, the more off his gaze became when he looked at me, as if I were some kind of rare species. Afraid he might remember the past, I started thinking about moving to the neighboring city to avoid him. He looked up, took a deep breath, and strode toward me. This was the first time he had initiated a conversation since losing his memory. "Why does your husband always let you come for prenatal checkups alone? Taking care of a child is hard work. It's not good to have no one around to help. I mean, I'm quite attracted to you. If you don't mind, I can help you take care of the child. I am the one Grant Wilson keeps by his side. I look decent, have a fairly gentle temper, and can get along with him at night, so." He who had always kept his distance from women did something that left everyone stunned. He kept me by his side for 2 years. Everyone speculated whether he had truly fallen in love. Then, he had an accident, and, of all things, he forgot all about me. Damn that Grant Wilson. Could it be that he doesn't want to give me compensation and is pretending to have amnesia on purpose? I was muttering to myself. On the other end of the phone, Assistant Lee was conveying Grant Wilson's arrangements for me after his memory loss. He put it so tactfully. "Miss Susan, after losing his memory, Mr. Wilson feels that it was quite inappropriate for him to have supported you in the past. He says he has no impression of you and doesn't want to see you again, so I'm sorry, but you'll have to move out of the apartment at Cloud Residence in the next couple of days." The apartment at Cloud Residence is where Grant Wilson had settled me. It's also the place where I slept with him for 2 years. After living there for 2 years, I've come to think of it as my own home. The room is filled with many plush toys that I love. On the balcony, there are also small tomatoes that I enjoy eating. So when I heard we had to move out, I felt a bit uneasy, but the house is his, and the money is his too. I listlessly nodded. Hearing this, I was already prepared to leave empty-handed. Assistant Lee then changed the subject and said, "Mr. Wilson isn't an unreasonable person. He heard that you've been with him for 2 years and felt that even if there's no credit, there's hard work, so he transferred you some money and gave you an apartment in the city center, on the condition that you stop bothering him." As soon as the words fell, I received a text message on my phone about a bank card deposit, a string of zeros making my head spin. That little bit of discomfort vanished instantly. My mind felt like it was setting off fireworks, crackling and bursting into bloom. Grinning from ear to ear, I quickly assured Assistant Lee, "Don't worry, I'll move out in the next couple of days. No, I'll move out today. I promise I won't get anywhere near your Mr. Wilson from now on." This time, I really hit the jackpot. I have money, and I'm carrying a baby with good genes in my belly. Plus, I don't have to serve that man who's terrifyingly energetic at night. It's like a pie falling from the sky. That's right, I'm pregnant. I've always wanted a child. When I first found out, I hinted at it to Grant Wilson, both directly and indirectly. "Do you like children?" Grant Wilson said without a second thought. "I don't like them. They're a lot of trouble." He glanced at me, frowning as he asked, "Do you want a child?" His expression was so serious, as if he would kick me out the next second if I dared to say I wanted it. How could I dare to say I was pregnant? I quickly shook my head and spoke with absolute certainty. No, I hate kids the most. Besides, with the kind of relationship we have, we can't have a child, without any commitment or status." I thought there was nothing wrong with saying that, but Grant Wilson, for some inexplicable reason, suddenly blew up. "What kind of relationship is this between us? Are you really that unwilling to have a child with me?" I have to say, I'm truly impressed by his reading comprehension skills. I could only roll my eyes secretly behind his back. As a result, this dog of a man, without a word, threw me onto the bed again. Fortunately, the child is tough. His father, like a perpetual motion machine, tossed and turned all night, and it still didn't fall. This only strengthened my resolve to keep the child, so when Grant Wilson lost his memory and told me to get lost, of course I took the money and ran. I couldn't have been happier. That very day, I went to Assistant Lee to handle the property transfer procedures and moved into that apartment overnight. I happily began my pregnancy life. During the day, I'd take walks, cook, and take on design projects, watch some shows in the evening, listen to music, and leave comments and likes for the handsome guys on my phone. Back when I was with Grant Wilson, I never had such a good life. All because Grant Wilson said that if I dared to like a handsome guy, I'd have to work twice as hard. Even though he's handsome and skilled, and I enjoyed it, doing it too often really takes a toll on my back. So back then, I had to sneak around to watch videos of handsome guys, and liking them was something I didn't even dare to think about. Now it's completely different. I can watch hundreds of handsome guys in a day, and I like so many posts that my fingers get tired, with no worries about material needs and a happy state of mind. Life is just so comfortable, happy days fly by. And in the blink of an eye, it's time for the prenatal checkup. The thought of meeting the little one in my belly fills my heart with sweetness. Lost in my joy, I didn't even notice the faint unease deep in my heart. I never dreamed I would run into Grant Wilson at the hospital downtown. In the bustling hospital lobby, I spotted him at a glance. He had gauze wrapped around his head and was wearing a blue and white striped hospital gown, probably because of the injury. His neat short hair had been shaved even shorter, now a buzz cut, but this didn't affect his looks at all. Instead, it made his features appear more defined and striking. When his gaze swept over, I quickly lowered my head. The gaze from above was scorching hot, making me uneasy inside. He's a wealthy and powerful young master from a rich family. After an accident, why isn't he staying in a private hospital or at least a top-tier grade A hospital? How did he end up in this ordinary downtown hospital? Just as I was grumbling to myself, the gaze from above shifted away. I cautiously looked up and saw that Grant Wilson's figure had already disappeared into the crowd. I patted my chest and let out a long sigh of relief. It's fine, it's definitely fine. He's lost his memory and forgotten all about me. Even if he sees me, he won't recognize me. In his eyes, I'm just a stranger. While comforting myself, I walked toward the obstetrics and gynecology department. In 2025, there weren't many pregnant women coming for prenatal checkups. Getting a number and waiting for my turn, everything went quite smoothly. The prenatal checkup also went without any issues. When I received the baby's ultrasound report and the doctor said the child was healthy, I felt both nervous and excited. Since my family passed away, this is the first time I've had a blood bond. He is my connection to this world, the little life I've created. Even though he hasn't been born yet, I can't help but love him. I can't help but keep him. Holding the ultrasound report, I pondered how to preserve it properly. This is the baby's first photo. It needs to be laminated, and then pick a nice frame. Ouch, someone was running too fast from the opposite direction, and I didn't dodge in time, so we collided. I was so startled I almost lost my balance, when suddenly a sturdy arm reached out from beside me, wrapped around my waist to steady me, and then immediately let go. After steadying myself, I looked at the ultrasound report that had fallen to the ground and quickly touched my stomach. The person who bumped into me turned around and casually said sorry before running off again. I cursed inwardly, bent down to pick up the ultrasound report, blew the dust off it, and looked up to thank the person who had helped me, only to find him staring down at the ultrasound report in my hand. When I saw that familiar face, I was instantly speechless. Sword-like eyebrows, hawk-like eyes, a high-nose bridge. The person who had just caught me and saved the baby was actually Grant Wilson. My mouth hung wide open. The words "thank you" stuck in my throat, unable to come out. Grant Wilson sized me up a few times, then glanced at the ultrasound report. His usually icy face now looked as cold as an Antarctic glacier. It sent a chill down my spine, and I was terrified he might suddenly remember something, drag me off to abort the baby, or pull some "keep the child, discard the mother" stunt, leaving me unable to see my baby ever again. The more I thought about it, the more frightened I became. In a moment of panic, I blurted out, "The baby isn't yours." I regretted it as soon as I said it. Grant Wilson has already lost his memory. Wasn't I just admitting it without being asked? I forced a smile and quickly tried to cover it up. Haha, just kidding, handsome guy, thank you so much. My husband wasn't around just now, and luckily you were here, otherwise I really wouldn't have known how to explain it to him. This child has been long awaited by our old James family. The more I spoke, the smoother it became, but Grant Wilson's face grew darker and darker. In the end, he probably couldn't stand me going on about the old James family. Without saying a word, he turned and left. Oh my God, that was terrifying. I must change hospitals for the next prenatal checkup. Watching his retreating figure, I made up my mind. After that day, I spent several anxious days at home, apart from a call from Assistant Lee asking if I still wanted the large rabbit plushie in the bedroom. I received no further messages from Grant Wilson. I breathed a sigh of relief and slowly returned to my previous leisurely days of pregnancy. Soon, the day for the second prenatal checkup arrived. This time, I chose the most renowned tertiary hospital in the city. I strolled leisurely toward the hospital, thinking to myself, surely it couldn't be such a coincidence that Grant Wilson had transferred from the city center hospital to this one, right? As it turned out, it really was that coincidental. In the hospital lobby, seeing Grant Wilson not far away, I was completely stunned. Grant Wilson had a particularly strong sense of perception and immediately looked toward me, frowning slightly. He was probably also wondering why I had suddenly come to this hospital. After all, you don't usually switch hospitals for prenatal checkups. What a lousy coincidence. If I had known he was here, I wouldn't have come. He stared at me for too long, and I couldn't avoid it, so I raised my hand and waved at him. Hey handsome, what a coincidence. Are you here to change your bandages? After losing his memory, Grant Wilson became quite rude, giving me a cold glance before turning and walking away as if he didn't know me. Back when I was by his side, whenever we ran into each other outside, he would always come over to pat my head and give me a kiss. Now, well, TSK. I made a face at his retreating back and quickly slipped off to the obstetrics department. This prenatal checkup also went smoothly, and I got the second photo of my baby. In my eyes, my baby is absolutely adorable no matter how I look, and I can't bear to look away. I found a chair to sit down and was completely absorbed when suddenly, with a thud, someone fell right in front of me as if staging a scam. I was so startled that I quickly stood up. Sir, are you alright? I crouched down and struggled to turn him over, worried he might be suffocating. As a result, I unexpectedly came face to face with Grant Wilson. I really can't believe it. How come I run into him everywhere? But seeing the bruise on his forehead, I couldn't just ignore it. I took a deep breath, called for help all around, and together with a nurse, sent him to the emergency room. Slipping out of the emergency room, I made up my mind to switch to another hospital next time. If we meet again, I'll really start to question my life. Before I even reached the entrance of the outpatient clinic, I ran into someone I shouldn't have seen. In the lobby, Assistant Lee and I locked eyes. Remembering my previous promise, I quickly raised 2 fingers and swore, I swear, I really didn't intend to bother your Mr. Wilson. I just came to see him because I have a bit of a cold. I definitely wasn't waiting around for him. Assistant Lee remained silent for quite a while before saying quietly, Mr. Wilson's visit to the hospital today was arranged on short notice. I know you're not that kind of person. After a pause, he added with a complicated expression, still, thank you for saving Mr. Wilson just now. I breathed a sigh of relief and waved my hand. Don't mention it. This is a hospital. Even if it wasn't me, someone else would have helped. I'm really not good at making small talk with him, so I said goodbye and tried to leave. Assistant Lee suddenly called out to me from behind, his voice hesitant, Miss Susan, why don't you go see Mr. Wilson? He doesn't remember you. Maybe because he hasn't seen you in person. Perhaps if you meet, he'll recall the past. I'd better not. We've already met several times, and it didn't help. He really has forgotten me. Besides, I'm pregnant, so I don't dare to hang around him. What if he regains his memory and doesn't want this child? I'd be crying my eyes out. I quickly refused. No, I won't see him. After organizing my thoughts, I earnestly advised him, Assistant Lee, your boss Mr. Wilson specifically said he doesn't want me to appear in front of him. How could you go against his wishes just because of our little friendship? So, whatever you do, don't mention me in front of Grant Wilson. After returning home from the prenatal checkup that day, I immediately listed the house with an agent overnight. Better safe than sorry. It's fine if amnesiac Grant Wilson sees me at my prenatal checkup, but if his Assistant Lee, who knows the inside story, catches sight of me, that would be trouble. If he finds out I'm pregnant, 9 times out of 10 he'll tell Grant Wilson. Grant Wilson didn't like children even before his amnesia, so he certainly won't like them now. By then, both me and the baby in my belly will probably be in danger. The capital is where I grew up, and I can't bear to leave, so, the only option is to move somewhere farther away from Grant Wilson and switch to a different hospital for prenatal checkups. This time, I really don't want to run into Grant Wilson again. For the 3rd prenatal checkup, I ran into Grant Wilson yet again. In the outpatient hall, he stood at the passageway, dressed in a high-end suit as if he were heading to some important meeting. The hair that had been shaved short due to the injury had now grown to ear length, and he was gradually returning to his pre-accident appearance. It's just that his demeanor had grown colder than before, like an eternal, unmelting sheet of ice. His gaze was as deep as a pool, fixed intently on me. I stood not far from him, frozen in place. Not daring to approach, I sighed inwardly, wondering if I should just run off abroad. Once abroad, even if he remembered something, it wouldn't be so easy for him to find me, though leaving my hometown would be tough. For the baby's sake, it's worth it. I really miss home. I can come back when the baby is a bit older. After figuring it out, I breathed a sigh of relief. When I looked at Grant Wilson again, I wasn't as afraid anymore, and I even looked up and smiled at him. Then I saw him take a deep breath and stride toward me. This was the first time he had ever initiated a conversation with me during all our chance encounters. Why does your husband always let you come for prenatal checkups alone? A child shouldn't be without their father's company. What I mean is, I have quite a feeling for you. If you don't mind, how about I become the child's father? I blinked, thinking I must have misheard. Grant Wilson lowered his head, his usual aloof demeanor tinged with a hint of embarrassment. Miss Susan Ching. I don't mind that the child in your belly isn't mine. I will treat him well. I fell silent, stunned and with mixed emotions. Just because of Grant Wilson's sudden whim. He used to say he didn't like kids. Turns out he just enjoys being someone else's dad, not having his own. Unbelievable. I immediately shot Grant Wilson several disdainful looks and sneered, my child has a biological father. I don't need you. Grant Wilson's face darkened for a second, but in the next moment, it turned exceptionally resolute as he said with absolute certainty, he doesn't even accompany you to prenatal checkups. Can he be a good father? He can't, but you can. I can. I don't believe it. Show me your sincerity by transferring me 500,000. Grant Wilson lowered his head, and then I received a transfer notification on my phone, 1 million. He looked at me, his gaze especially affectionate. I have money. I'm really suited to be your husband, and the father of the child in your belly. I stared at the extra 1 million in my phone, completely speechless. Assistant Lee, who had come over at some point, opened his mouth wide and let out a sound of confusion. He looked at me and Grant Wilson with a very strange expression. Are you two trying out some new game? I was speechless. I'm not playing any games. It's your boss who can't let go, insisting on being the stepfather to the child in my belly. I've changed hospitals 3 times for prenatal checkups, and each time I've run into Grant Wilson. This coincidence is just too unbelievable. I completely gave up struggling and agreed to go back with Grant Wilson, giving him a chance to be a stepfather. Assistant Lee drove, holding the steering wheel and asking, back to Cloud Mansion. I answered as a matter of course, yes. Grant Wilson, however, was quick to object. No. I glanced at him lightly. Why not? Are you hiding another woman there? Grant Wilson was taken aback for a moment and didn't speak. After a long while, he stammered, probably, there isn't. There shouldn't be any more. Listen to what he's saying. Grant Wilson's voice grew softer as he spoke. Well, I was in a car accident a while ago and lost a chunk of my memory. My assistant, Lee, told me I used to have a girlfriend, but I have no recollection of her at all. I swear I have no feelings for her, and I've already let her go. What I like now is you. From the moment I first saw you, I felt like we should be together. Oh, so you have no feelings for me at all anymore. I listened to his declaration of loyalty with a blank expression. Beside us, the highly educated and intelligent assistant Lee was dumbfounded. He stole a glance at me and frantically signaled to Grant Wilson, you'll definitely remember her. Grant Wilson probably hadn't fully processed the situation yet and didn't pick up on his signal, stating firmly, I can't remember. Then he turned to me with deep affection. My feelings for you are genuine. I don't care that you've been married before, and I don't care that you're carrying someone else's child. I want to marry you. By the way, when are you going to divorce your ex-husband? Assistant Lee's hand on the steering wheel trembled, nearly causing the car to swerve into an S-shaped path. I sneered, glaring at Grant Wilson, and said through gritted teeth, we'll see how you perform. He can't even remember me. Yet he wants to be the stepfather of the child in my belly. When we arrived at Cloud Mansion, I secretly messaged Assistant Lee, telling him to pretend not to know me and not to reveal that I was once someone close to Grant Wilson. Assistant Lee gave Grant Wilson a sympathetic look, nodded, and slipped away, sweating profusely. I swaggered into the villa, and Aunt Lucy, who was watering the flowers in the yard, saw me and happily ran over. She glanced at Grant Wilson's expression and whispered, Miss Susan, Have you made up with Mr. Wilson? I nodded and whispered back, yes, but he got confused after a car accident a while ago and thought I was someone else's wife. If you see any strange behavior between us, don't take it seriously, just think of it as young people playing around. Aunt Lucy suddenly understood and said knowingly, oh, is it that thing young people like to play these days? What's it called? Role-playing? I smiled and nodded. Aunt Lucy, you're so clever. Glancing back at Grant Wilson, who was completely clueless, I flashed a mischievous smile. I went straight upstairs to the bedroom and changed into a nightgown. When I came out, I bumped into Grant Wilson standing at the door. He looked up at me, his eyes lighting up. This dress looks really nice. I can't believe the clothes I had someone buy for you arrived so quickly. I twirled the hem of the dress and said with a smile, this is your ex-girlfriend's dress. How could it not look good? Grant Wilson's already cold face froze completely. Huh. I immediately rolled my eyes. Don't want me to wear it. Grant Wilson quickly shook his head. No. I smiled and leaned in to kiss his lips, following his gaze as I said, that's good. Aren't you trying to be my husband? Why are you so reserved now? Grant Wilson's ears turned red as he turned his head away, his eyelids fluttering slightly. Well, I'll have to wait until you get divorced first. My slender fingers traced his Adam's apple, lightly tapping it with my fingertips. You must have heard, right? Pregnant women have greater needs. If you can't handle it, I'll just go back to my old James. Before I could finish my sentence, Grant Wilson, his eyes dark and intense, swept me up into his arms and carried me into the bedroom, laying me down on the soft bed. He leaned in to kiss me, his eyes filled with both guilt and struggle, but he never stopped. I was just trying to tease him, but after getting pregnant, hormones made it too easy to get carried away, kissed into a daze. I forgot to refuse. He was mindful of my belly, not daring to be too forceful, but his slowness was maddening, leaving me hanging in suspense. My face flushed red as I begged him to hurry. He kissed my fingertips, his tone coaxing. Who are you begging right now? I couldn't stand the slow pace any longer and slapped him. He instantly sped up, his eyes growing even redder. Why didn't you say it? Huss, banned. Grant Wilson paused his movements, biting my finger fiercely. Don't think about him now. You're about to get divorced. After losing his memory, Grant Wilson was even more absurd than the melodramatic male leads in TV dramas. I closed my eyes, feeling both amused and unable to hold back a soft hum. The next day, I woke up a bit late. When I got out of bed, I saw Grant Wilson tiptoeing around, directing people to move the clothes from my walk-in closet. I frowned and glared at him. What are you doing with these? Grant Wilson wore a stern expression and said matter-of-factly, making space for your new clothes and bags. All these plush toys in the room will be thrown out too. Buy whatever you like again. And that pile of cherry tomatoes on the balcony will be cleared out to plant roses for you. I was so angry I almost exploded on the spot, ready to throw him out right then and there. I put so much thought into all of this, and just because he lost his memory, he wants to tear it down for a woman he's only met a few times. At the peak of my anger, I actually laughed. That won't do. Aren't these all things you liked? Grant Wilson didn't even think about it. I don't like them. My eyes immediately turned dangerous. Oh, so it's your ex-girlfriend who liked them. Although Grant Wilson was aloof, he still knew how to read the room and quickly shook his head. No, it's that I like it. I was waiting for him to say that. I rummaged through the closet and tossed him a pink hoodie with rabbit ears. Darling, I knew you'd like it. Hurry up and put it on for work. No, I need to dress more formally for work. How formal is a pink rabbit hoodie? It makes you look so youthful. Grant Wilson's face was cold as he slowly took it. Back when I was decorating the room, he was always reluctant, and I had to argue half the night just to keep these plush toys. Now that he's lost his memory, he wants to change the person and the style. Dream on. He's going to wear the rabbit hoodie for me too. At the dining table, I took small sips of the bird's nest porridge Aunt Lucy had prepared, while Grant Wilson tugged uncomfortably at the rabbit ears on his hoodie. With a cool, stiff expression, he whispered, "Do I really have to wear this?" I swallowed the porridge and said leisurely, "You don't have to wear it. I was actually planning to go talk to old James about the divorce today, but now I'm in a bad mood, so I won't go." No, I'll wear it. I can even go with you to talk about the divorce." It concerned whether he could secure his position. So Grant Wilson immediately let go of the ear he was pinching. I shot him a glance and said irritably, "Go where? You're acting so arrogantly as the other woman. Do you have any morals?" Grant Wilson instantly transformed from a majestic tiger into a timid quail, his imposing aura completely gone. Yet he still argued stubbornly, "I just met you a bit later, how can you blame me for that?" "Not blame you. Then blame my old James." I couldn't stand his pretentious act and immediately retorted, "He treats me so well." "Then, give him more money," Grant Wilson tentatively suggested. My eyes lit up, and I cleared my throat lightly. He should give more. After all, our old James loves me so much. In the afternoon, old James himself received a huge sum of money transferred by Assistant Lee. Assistant Lee sounded particularly helpless when he called, "Miss Susan, if you keep playing Mr. Wilson like this, what if he regains his memory? He might not be angry with you. But I'll be the one in trouble. If he dares to fire you, just sell his embarrassing stories from this period to his rival company." Assistant Lee instantly perked up. "That's a great idea." I gave him another reassurance. "Besides, this is just a role-play game I'm playing with your Mr. Wilson. It has nothing to do with you." Dealing with Assistant Lee was so satisfying. As soon as Grant Wilson left the company, I received the news, in the cafe. I quickly asked someone to bring another cup of milk tea. Not long after, I spotted a familiar figure sneaking around in the corner. No wonder he had been dawdling before leaving, asking for the meeting address. When I saw him go to work this morning, I thought he wouldn't come. Fortunately, the actor I hired, Old James, also arrived. Old James was a first-rate performer, slamming the table and shouting, "Where is that homewrecker? What right does he have to seduce you into divorcing me?" The homewrecker himself was sitting right behind Old James, listening with an expressionless face. "He's handsome and rich," I said with a straight face. Behind Old James, Grant Wilson secretly curled the corners of his mouth. Not wanting to let him feel too pleased, I quickly changed the subject, grabbing Old James's sleeve to add to the drama. "Husband, I still have feelings for you. How about I steal his money to support you?" Old James reacted super fast, nodding immediately. Sure. I caught a glimpse of someone behind Old James whose eyes instantly turned red, and I couldn't help but laugh. Back then, I ran away not just because I was afraid Grant Wilson would make me abort the child. Even if I insisted on giving birth, he couldn't really do anything to me. Ultimately, it was because I felt Grant Wilson didn't love me enough. When I met Grant Wilson, I was in a truly pitiful state. At that time, my father's company had gone bankrupt, leaving behind a huge debt, and he was diagnosed with cancer, passing away within a few months. Left alone, I was chased by creditors and cornered by employees demanding their wages. I sold everything, the house, the jewelry, but still owed $5 million. And Grant Wilson was one of those creditors to whom I owed $5 million. Back then, finding a job was incredibly tough. With salaries of $3,000 to $5,000, it was a struggle just to support myself. I mustered up the courage to ask Grant Wilson if he could give me a job, offering to pay off my debt with my wages. Just leaving me a little living allowance each month would be enough. I remember Grant Wilson giving me a cold glance at the time, as if he found it amusing. He pointed at Assistant Lee and said, "He graduated from a top foreign university with a master's in finance and works as my assistant with an annual salary of $2 million. Even if you had his qualifications, it would take you 2.5 years to pay it off. What's your educational background?" As a graduate from an ordinary second-tier university, I instantly deflated. Grant Wilson let out a cold laugh and walked away. I thought there was no hope left. But that very night, Assistant Lee notified me to report to the company. Grant Wilson gave me a job as an assistant in the president's office, with a salary of $10,000, deducting $8,000 each month to repay my debt. I calculated that at this rate, it would take over 50 months, nearly 4.5 years. That night, I cried for a long time under the covers, mourning the rest of my life. The next day, I obediently went to work, beginning my days of working for Grant Wilson to repay the debt. We were originally just a simple boss and employee. I worked cautiously, and he gave cold, commanding orders, but in less than 3 months, after a drinking party, our relationship took a different turn. The next day, he had Assistant Lee arrange a place for me to stay, and I tactfully submitted my resignation letter. So even though Grant Wilson treated me so well later on, I always felt unsettled. I fell in love with him and became anxious about losing him. I do like plush toys, but not to the point of filling the entire house with them. What I really liked was the way he frowned but still indulged me. He never complained about me being difficult, but I always doubted his sincerity. When he said he didn't like children, I was afraid he would leave me because of a child. That's the real reason I ran away while he had amnesia. But I never expected that, even with amnesia, he would fall for me, a married woman. The good news is, I no longer have to worry about him disliking children. The bad news is, I've started to question his character. Grant Wilson, whose morals are questionable, didn't go home after work. Assistant Lee said he was working overtime, but it's unclear why there were always sounds of things being thrown in his office. I know Grant Wilson is really good at putting on a front, aloof and unapproachable in public, but secretly crying his eyes out in private. He used to keep up appearances even in front of me, only holding me and shedding tears quietly after I fell asleep when he was upset. Losing his composure like this at the office is a first. I felt a bit guilty, wondering if I had gone too far. I'll just tell him the truth in a couple of days. A little past 1 in the morning, I was half asleep when Grant Wilson came home. He washed up outside before entering the room, got into bed, wrapped his arms around my waist, and started crying. Wah, do you still love him? Just because I met you a little later, how could you love him? Wah wah wah, you're even going to use my money to support him. I don't care, you can support him, but you can't love him, and the baby in your belly can only recognize me as its father. Listening to him cry more and more absurdly, I rolled over and gave him a slap to tell him to keep it down and not disturb me, but this guy grabbed my hand and kissed it, sobbing as he said, "Wife, you smell so nice." He stopped crying, and that's when things started to feel off. I felt the wet sensation on my hand and was at a loss for words. Oh well, I'd rather he just kept crying. I was peacefully resting at the Cloud Mansion, occasionally watching videos of handsome men and teasing Grant Wilson from time to time. Life couldn't have been more comfortable. That is, until one day, while going through the gifts Grant Wilson had given me, I found a small box containing a diamond ring. The silver band was set with a diamond that, while not large, was exceptionally bright. Its simple design was exactly to my taste. With trembling hands, I slipped it onto my ring finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been custom-made for me. Holding it up to the light, I could see a line of tiny characters engraved on the inside of the band. G love S. S stands for Susan, my name. So, this is a proposal ring for me. I grabbed the box and rushed downstairs to ask Aunt Lucy, who was cooking. Aunt Lucy, when was this box placed in my gift cabinet? Aunt Lucy was busy stir-frying and glanced back. It was the day you moved out. I found it under the bedside table and thought it was a gift from Mr. Wilson, so I just put it in there. My throat went dry, and my heart raced. I immediately called Assistant Lee. Was Grant Wilson planning to propose to me before the car accident? After getting the affirmative answer, I cried and laughed. We were so close to getting married. Assistant Lee listened to the commotion on my end, fell silent for a moment, and said, "Mr. Wilson actually knew you liked children. Before the accident, he had been working out and consulting doctors about having a baby. When he hadn't lost his memory, you were always in his future plans." Assistant Lee added, "After he lost his memory, he originally wanted you to leave the city, but considering he was about to propose, I took it upon myself to only have you move out of Cloud Mansion. Please don't doubt Mr. Wilson's feelings for you. Even though he forgot you, hasn't he fallen in love with you again? Even if, in his eyes, you're a married woman." After hanging up the phone, I was stunned for a long time. My heart felt both sweet and bitter. Grant Wilson had always been tolerant of my little quirks, yet I never truly believed in him. When it comes to love, if it takes 100 steps, I always seem to be one step behind him. I texted Grant Wilson to come home early tonight, but he probably misunderstood. I waited until I fell asleep, and he still hadn't returned. It wasn't until the middle of the night that his crying woke me up. Wah wah wah, honey, do you not want to use my money to support old James anymore? Is that why you asked me to come home early? Are you breaking up with me? I don't want to break up. I can't live without you. The first time I saw you in the hospital, I felt so at ease. I want to be with you for the rest of my life. Wah wah wah, wife, don't leave me. I gently stroked his tear-streaked cheek and comforted him. I won't leave you. We'll be together for a lifetime. Grant Wilson's sobbing paused. He lifted his head, wiped his tears fiercely, and instantly reverted to his cool guy demeanor. You're not allowed to have old James, though his voice still carried a hint of a sob. I nodded softly and said, "There's no old James, I only have you." I hugged him and told him all about our past, even pulling out a photo of us together to show him. Grant Wilson stared at me, half believing, half doubting. Really, if you don't believe me, ask Assistant Lee." Grant Wilson nodded and said okay. That night, we slept in each other's arms. The next day, Assistant Lee called me. "Mr. Wilson asked me if the one he used to keep was you." I said yes. But he didn't seem to believe it, looking at me strangely. What exactly did you say to him last night? I was just telling the truth. What doesn't Grant Wilson believe? I quickly understood his train of thought. Grant Wilson posted a thread on a forum using a throwaway account, titled, "My wife and my assistant are lying to me. Should I expose them?" First, a confession, I'm guilty. I fell in love with a married woman who was pregnant and made her my wife. Anyway, that's not the point. The key is that my wife has changed her story. She now claims she's my ex. I lost my memory in a car accident, and my assistant said I used to have a partner, and that the baby in her belly is mine. She even photoshopped a bunch of pictures of us together, including one where I'm making a heart gesture with my hands. I would never do that. She told me to ask my assistant if I didn't believe her. And the assistant backed her up. Clickbait title, I don't want to expose them. And I won't investigate. I just want to know how I can make my wife believe that I trust her. The post was so absurd that the comments section was filled with people criticizing him. I was both angry and amused, and all the guilt I felt last night vanished. Forget about the truth. Let him keep playing the other man. When Grant Wilson came back in the evening, I pulled a long face and said, "My old James always steps in with his left foot, unlike some people who step in with their right foot." He looked at me with a cold expression, and I added sarcastically, "My old James is always smiling, unlike some people who keep a straight face all day long. It's so annoying." Grant Wilson forced a smile, which looked even worse than a frown. I rolled my eyes and said, "TSK, my old James has such a beautiful smile." With a click, the light was turned off. Grant Wilson lunged at me like a madman, kissing me and saying, "Don't mention old James. Don't mention him, I hate him." I could only make whimpering sounds the whole time. Grant Wilson was truly anxious, even abandoning his cool guy image, crying while he fumbled around. I also felt like crying, but it was from pleasure. Humph, this is what you get for not believing me. The next day, I dragged Grant Wilson to get our marriage certificate. 5 months later, I gave birth to a son naturally. Another year passed, and the child started learning to speak. One day, I secretly overheard Grant Wilson whispering to the child, "Baby, I'm your biological father. If anyone says otherwise in the future, don't you believe them." I was so angry that I elbowed him. Good heavens, when on earth will he regain his memory? When our child was 3 years old, one night while I was watching TV, I casually mentioned old James, who had already become a popular young star. Grant Wilson exploded on the spot and didn't calm down until the middle of the night. The next morning, he leaned against the headboard, staring straight at me. Still half asleep, I leaned over and kissed his face, instinctively complaining, "Old James has become a big star now. What's wrong with me watching a couple of episodes of his show? You get jealous faster than anyone. Besides, I have nothing to do with him." The next second, Grant Wilson covered my mouth, his tone both embarrassed and annoyed. "I know, stop talking." Normally, I'd have to reassure him for ages before he'd believe me. His reaction today is off. I suddenly opened my eyes and saw Grant Wilson's face flushed red like a monkey's bottom, his lips pressed tightly together. A sudden thought struck me. "Have you regained your memory?" Grant Wilson glared at me angrily. I was speechless. "Ha ha ha, it really is." I rolled over and sat up, wrapping my arms around his waist, and with a smile, I mimicked him. "If you don't mind, how about I be the child's father? Honey, does that sound familiar?" Grant Wilson was so angry that he turned his head away, looking everywhere but at me. I followed suit, swaying along with his line of sight, grinning in a particularly punchable way. "Who said that?" "I can't guess." Grant Wilson was so angry with me he was about to puff up like a pufferfish, and my laughter just wouldn't stop, flowing out like a floodgate had been opened. Ha 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 ha. I must have been too loud for him, because he got so flustered and angry that he pounced on me. Pinning me down on the bed, like a little dog that's been pushed too far, he started nibbling all over me without any rhyme or reason, mumbling through it all, "Susan, if you laugh again." I laughed even harder, reaching out to tickle his sides. "I'll laugh if I want to. Who told you to say you'd be the child's stepdad back then? And you even said the baby in my belly wasn't yours. Remember now. Does your face hurt?" Grant Wilson squirmed away from my tickling but refused to let go. Rolling over to pin me beneath him, he pressed his forehead against mine, his breath hot against my skin. "It hurts, my heart hurts." I was taken aback for a moment, and my laughter stopped. He stared into my eyes, his voice low and earnest. "Back then, even though I had forgotten you, I felt a sense of familiarity when I saw you. When I saw your belly, I wanted to protect you, and when I heard you say you had a husband, it hurt as if I'd been cut by a knife." "Susan, I was truly foolish back then, not even recognizing you. His eyelashes were long, casting a small shadow on his eyelids when they lowered. The regret and tenderness in his eyes were almost overflowing. My heart softened, and I reached out to touch his face. It's not too late to recognize me now. It's too late. He lowered his head and kissed the tip of my nose. I've let you suffer, letting you run off alone while pregnant for so long, and making you watch me make such a fool of myself. I couldn't help but laugh again. Those moments were absolutely priceless, especially the time you wore the bunny hoodie to work. Assistant Lee said the whole company was secretly taking pictures of you. Grant Wilson's face flushed again as he reached out to pinch my cheek, still bringing that up. Wasn't it you who forced me to wear that? Who told you to try and throw away my plush toys? I just wanted to give you the best, didn't I? But what I like is exactly those things. We went back and forth, bickering playfully, as sunlight streamed through the gap in the curtains, falling on the blanket, warm and cozy. Suddenly, he lowered his head and whispered softly in my ear, "Actually, I regained my memory a long time ago." I froze. When did that happen? It was the day you said you'd steal my money to support old James. He chuckled softly, watching you and that actor play off each other. I suddenly remembered everything. I was stunned. And you've been pretending all this time. Who told you to have so much fun messing with me? He nibbled on my ear, his tone a bit sly. I just wanted to see how long you could keep this act going. I was furious and reached out to pinch his arm. Grant Wilson, you're too much. How could you just watch me make a fool of myself? I wasn't laughing at you. He grabbed my hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed it, his gaze so tender it could melt hearts. Seeing you so spirited when you argue with me, seeing the light in your eyes when you talk about our child, I think it's wonderful. I always felt you were cautious before, as if you might run away at any moment, but back then, you were so vibrant and bold. I adored that about you. My heart skipped a beat, and I turned my head away. Smooth talker. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. And that ring, I was planning to give it to you on your birthday. I know, I whispered. You know. Yes, Assistant Lee told me everything. I turned around and looked into his eyes. Grant Wilson, it was my fault before. I never trusted you. He shook his head and kissed my lips. It's not your fault. I didn't give you enough sense of security. The kiss was long, carrying the scent of sunshine and the preciousness of something lost and found again. Outside the window, sparrows chirped noisily, while the air inside the room grew sweet to the point of cloying. From then on, Grant Wilson seemed like a different person. He used to always maintain a cold, aloof demeanor, but now he would cling to me at every turn, demanding a kiss before work, a hug when he came home, and insisting on wrapping his arm around my waist when we slept at night. Aunt Lucy whispered to me, "Miss Susan, Mr. Wilson is acting like a child who hasn't been weaned yet." I smiled without saying a word, but my heart felt sweet. He found all my plush toys and bought even more, turning the living room into a fairy tale castle. The cherry tomatoes on the balcony were replanted, and the first thing he did after work every day was to water them, even more attentively than I was. Once, I teased him. "Why not throw them away and plant roses instead?" he said with a serious face. "Roses aren't as practical as cherry tomatoes. When they bear fruit, you can snack on them." I laughed so hard I couldn't straighten up. On the child's 4th birthday, Grant Wilson rented out an amusement park and even invited the actor who played old James. The little one held a cake and asked in a sweet, childish voice, "Daddy, who is this uncle?" Grant Wilson patted his son's head and said seriously, "This is Daddy's benefactor. If it weren't for him, Daddy might not have had the chance to be your daddy." The actor gave an awkward smile, and I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. Returning home in the evening, after the child had fallen asleep, Grant Wilson embraced me from behind and whispered in my ear, "Actually, the first time I saw you at the hospital, I thought you looked familiar, as if I had seen you somewhere before." "Where?" "In my dreams." I laughed and playfully hit him. But he caught my hand and said seriously, "It's true, during the time I lost my memory, I kept having a vague dream. In it, there was a girl with smiling, crescent-shaped eyes who always loved to act coquettishly with me. It wasn't until I saw you that I realized it wasn't just a dream." Grant Wilson, "Susan," he interrupted me, his tone solemn, "whether I have amnesia or not, I will fall in love with you. The first time was like this, the second time was like this, and countless times in the future will be the same." Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the starlight in his eyes. I leaned against his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. All the waiting and unease had found their best answer. After hearing the story above, What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.